All right. Uh, we are continuing our reading of the fourth chapter of the Bhagavad Gita as it is, which is entitled Transcendental Knowledge. Yesterday, we discussed verse number 23 and 24, where, as part of this, we understood that how Krishna is explaining that how the work of a man who is unattached to the modes of nature and who is fully situated in transcendental knowledge merges into existence. That uh, how a person who is not who understands what this work is meant to be and why he is performing all of this work as a and he's not attached to the results of this work. He understands his eternal position, and when he has a higher purpose, like Kaushik Prabhu gave us an example yesterday, that a cashier who's sitting in the bank may deposit thousands of dollars into the bank account and may also withdraw hundreds and thousands of dollars from that bank account and give it to someone else. But he himself is not attached to that cash. He does not necessarily feel happy or sad when that happens. In the same way, when we understand what our eternal purpose is, the same example we have discussed with how a mother, even though she is working, whether it is summer, winter, day, night, yeah, all the time, because she understands the relationship with the child. So she wants to provide the best of the best facilities for the child, the best of the dishes for the child that nourishes the child. In the same way, when we understand our transcendental relationship, then we are unattached to the modes of material nature, and then that gives us the opportunity to be completely merged into transcendence and not suffer any of the material effects. And the other words that we discussed yesterday was this Brahma Arpanam Brahma Havir, where Kaushik Prabhu explained to us that how Brahma means spiritual in nature, and when our contributions, when our motivation, when our consciousness is of an offering like this, when we are doing this with a spiritual consciousness, then every action becomes a sacrifice, and how that sacrifice uh, le- leads to the ultimate goal, and every activity can become of spiritual nature. So this is what we discussed yesterday. uh, does anyone have any questions from whatever we discussed before we go ahead? All right, so let us start with verse number 25 today. uh, Rohan, will you be able to read? All right. Francesco, will you be able to read?
Yes, Prabhu.
Yes, Prabhu. I can recite the Sanskrit. दैवम् एवापरे यज्ञम् योगिना पर्युपासते ब्रह्माज्ञा अपरे यज्ञम् यज्ञे यज्ञैवोपजु यज्ञैवोपजुह्वति. Please go ahead.
Translation. Some yogis perfectly worship the demigods by offering different sacrifices to them, and some offer sacrifices in the fire of the Supreme Brahman. Purport. As described above, a person engaged in discharging duties in Krishna consciousness is also called a perfect yogi or a first-class mystic. But there are others also who perform similar sacrifices in the worship of demigods, and still others who sacrifice to the Supreme Brahman, or the impersonal feature of the Supreme Lord. So there are different kinds of sacrifices in terms of different categories. Such different categories of sacrifice by different types of performers only superficially demark varieties of sacrifice. Actually, sacrifice means to satisfy the Supreme Lord, Vishnu, who is also known as Yajna. Other different varieties of sacrifice can be placed within two primary divisions, namely, sacrifice of worldly possessions and sacrifice in pursuit of transcendental knowledge. Those who are in Krishna consciousness sacrifice all material possessions for the satisfaction of the Supreme Lord, while others, who want some temporary material happiness, sacrifice their material possessions to satisfy demigods such as Indra, the sun god, etc. And others, who are impersonalists, sacrifice their identity by merging into the existence of impersonal Brahman. The demigods are powerful living entities appointed by the Supreme Lord for the maintenance and supervision of all material functions like the heating, watering, and landing of the universe. Those who are interested in material benefits worship the demigods by various sacrifices according to the Vedic rituals. They are called uh, Bha- Bha-
Ishwaravadi.
Vaishvaravadi, or believers in many gods. But others, who worship the impersonal feature of the absolute truth and regard the forms of the demigods as temporary, sacrifice their individual selves in the supreme fire and thus end their individual existence by merging into the existence of the Supreme. Such impersonalists sacrifice their time in philosophical speculation to understand the transcendental nature of the Supreme. In other words, the fruitive workers sacrifice their material possessions for material enjoyment, whereas the impersonalist sacrifices his material designations with a view to merging into the existence of the Supreme. For the impersonalist, the fire altar of sacrifice is the Supreme Brahman, and the offering is the self being consumed by the fire of Brahman. The Krishna conscious person, like Arjuna, however, sacrifices everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, and thus all his material possessions as well as his own self, everything is sacrificed for Krishna. Thus, he is a first class yogi, but he does not lose his individual existence.
Hare Krishna. Thank you
Hare
so
Krishna.
much, Francesco. So now this is a section of the fourth chapter where Krishna is now talking about the different types of sacrifices. So he will start this discussion about how various types of people perform various different types of sacrifices. So, like when I was reading this, I was contemplating on this and trying to understand one point. One of them was like, what is the real purpose of sacrifice? We have discussed this in the past also, that why do we perform these sacrifices? So sacrifices are performed essentially for three goals. One is to control the senses, second is to gain transcendental knowledge to, and that is the title of this chapter, to gain transcendental knowledge. And the final third thing is to gain devotional service of the Lord. Not every type of sacrifice is meant to attain all three of these. So some of them will help you achieve one or two of these goals, some of them will achieve one goal, but not all of them. So now what we are trying to learn from this is that we are all performing some or the other type of sacrifice always in our day-to-day life. If you think about it, you are always performing sacrifice. We have discussed this many times, like the example of Shreyas and Preyas, where a child who wants to play all day long, but his parents or his mother will tell him that no, you should not go out to play right now, instead go and study. Why? Because he needs to get a better, good education in order to get into a reputable university, and then get reach for a reputable job, and so on and so forth. At that time he is sacrificing that time, or he's sacrificing something that he liked, or something that was gratifying to his senses at that moment. So we are actually doing these sacrifices in a day-to-day life without knowingly or unknowingly. But then there are some sacrifices that we perform more uh, in a more aware fashion. Like there are yogis who will worship the demigods by different sacrifices because they want to attain certain qualities, or they want to attain certain favors by these demigods. Krishna tells in the Bhagavad Gita, as we read, if you remember, a few weeks back, we were discussing as to how some people, instead of worshipping Krishna, they will worship the demigods because the demigods are willing to offer some results much faster than Krishna. And discussed about the nature between the results that are given by Krishna and the results that are given by demigods. So when they are in that kind of a situation, they are looking to just gain that result, irrespective of whether that gives them, whether it is entangling in this world or whether it is freeing them from this world. So in that sense, they're just trying to gain. So those are the people who will worship the demigods for their various possessions. And we read that how even when you're worshiping the demigods, eventually you're going to Krishna, because Krishna is the source of everything, and he is the one who is empowering them. And now there are some people who understand this, as it was, I think, written over here, that regard the forms of demigods as temporary, because they understand, the impersonalists know that the demigods are not permanent, they are not all in all, they are not the one who are possessing these powers, they have got these powers from Krishna. Therefore they decided to worship one level above, that is to the impersonal feature of the Lord, which is absolute truth. And when they are performing those kinds of worship, they are sacrificing their time in philosophical speculation. So that is the second type of sacrifice that the impersonalists are performing. And finally, this also talks about the devotees that I missed that point. Mm. Okay, never mind, I can't find it. So the devotees of the Lord, like a Krishna conscious person, they sacrifice everything that is there, but they are not sacrificing everything that is there in order to achieve a position of merging into transcendence, but they want to attain that service of the Lord, they want to attain the devotional service of the Lord. That is their aim of sacrificing everything. They might be looking, they might seem to be performing all actions as a materialist. They might also go to work, they might also come back from work, they might also eat food, they might do everything, but their intent is that they want to satisfy the Lord through every action. And that is what we discussed as part of the verse yesterday, that how when one is dedicating every action and how their life then becomes a sacrifice. They don't necessarily have to do something else, but then their life itself becomes a sacrifice to the Lord, and the Lord is then responsible and he will ensure that he will take care of them. I hope this made some sense. Does anyone have any questions, any comments? All right, moving on. uh, Amit Prabhu, will you be able to read?
Yes, Prabhuji. Uh, श्रोतादीनिन्द्रियाणीनि संया संयमाग्निषु जुह्वति शब्दादीन् इन्द्रियाणि juhyati. Translation: Some, the unadulterated brahmacharis, sacrifice the hearing process and the sense in the fire of mental control, and others, the regulated householders, sacrifice the objects of the senses in the fire of the senses. Purport: The members of the four divisions of human life, namely the brahmacharis, the grihastha, the vanaprastha, and sannyasi, are all meant to become perfect yogis or transcendentalists. Since human life is not meant for our enjoying sense gratification like the animals, the four order of human lives are so arranged that one may become perfect in spiritual life. The brahmacharis, or student under the care of a bona fide spiritual master, control the mind by abstaining from sense gratification. A brahmachari hears only words concerning Krishna consciousness. Hearing is the basic principle for understanding, and therefore the pure brahmachari engages fully in Harer Namanukirtanam, chanting and hearing the glories of the Lord. He restrains himself from the vibration of material sounds, and his hearing is induced in the transcendental sound vibration of Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Similarly, the householders who have some license for sense gratification perform such act with great restraints. Sex life, intoxication, and meat eating are general tendencies of human society, but a regulated householder does not indulge in unrestricted sex life and other sense gratification. Marriage on the principle of religious life is therefore current in all civilized human society because that is the way for restricted sex life. This restricted, unattached sex life is also a kind of yajna because the restricted householder sacrifices his general tendency towards sense gratification for higher transcendental life.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Amit Prabhu. So now, this section talks about how the various orders of life, how they are performing sacrifices. From whatever actions they are doing, how can those actions be sanctified through the process of sacrifice? So, for someone who is a brahmachari, we have discussed the four orders of life, namely the brahmachari or the student, grihastha or the householder, vanaprastha or someone who is in the later stage of his household life, where they're not supposed to be so engaged in the household. They're supposed to start learning to get detached from that household life. And finally, the sannyasis or the renunciate who give up everything for. They are all meant to become perfect yogis, because all of these, the whole Vedic civilization was divided in these four divisions of life in order to help us come closer to the understanding of this spiritual life and the spiritual realization and transcendental knowledge. So, now how do all of them engage in this sacrifice? So, the brahmacharis or the students, they engage by hearing, by giving attentive attention to hearing only Krishna conscious words or Krishna conscious literature. They are not engaging themselves into unruly uh, indulgence of non Krishna conscious sound vibration in the form of music from some Hollywood, Bollywood music, or anything of that sort, or exposing themselves to provoking visuals through the form of cinema or movies or internet, etc. All of this. So they have to practice that kind. They practice sacrifice by controlling those senses, by keeping those senses under control. Uh, and the next thing that this talks about is about householders. Once someone becomes a householder, they have certain more responsibilities, therefore they are more outgoing, and they have some license of sense gratification, in the sense that they end up interacting with a lot of more people, where they will be needing to maybe talk or do a lot of other things that may not look directly Krishna conscious, but at the same time they are doing everything under certain restrictions which are not just going rampant. So, like sex life, intoxication, meat eating, these are the general tendencies of society, where people are doing all of these activities without any kind of regulation or any kind of restriction. But when a person gets married on the principles of religious life, when they have a union for the purpose of raising children who will end up becoming good Krishna conscious children, that is a sacrifice in itself. And that is how it is called a yajna and sacrifice. So they are not performing sexual activities just for enjoying life, but they're doing it with a purpose of raising Krishna conscious kids with an intent that is there. And when they are doing that, which is against the nature, because our senses are going to be attracted to the immediate satisfaction, but when one uses this power of knowledge that we gain through reading this repeatedly, we understand that there is a higher goal that I need to attach myself. And we need to practice some self constraint and restraint. And that is sacrifice for a householder. I hope this makes some sense. So it's already 9:23. So we'll pause over here. And if anyone has any questions, any comments, please feel free to ask. Uh, or if you have something that you need to attend to, please feel free to drop off. Thank you so much for joining. I'll be around for another few minutes if anyone has any questions or comments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much.
I do have a small question. So,
Hmm.
really, mostly
Please go ahead.
like, is there a s- kind of transition that should happen to enter into that restriction on the senses? That's something that should happen naturally as one keeps chanting and reads, visit temples, associates with devotees. Is that something that should come naturally, or we need to look for it?
Yeah, that's actually a very thoughtful question. So, what a scripture says, when we are trying to grow a plant, you water the plant, but this watering of the plant will definitely grow the plant. At the same time, you have to take care of one more thing. That is, there are weeds that are growing around with that plant. So you need to explicitly remove all those weeds. When you do, if you just keep removing the weeds, the plant is not going to grow. Or if you're just going to keep on watering the plant, that will also not ensure the proper growth of the plant. So you need to do both of these things. In the same way, we need to practice both of these things. You have to practice a sense of restriction, that we control our senses. Sometimes those restraint will be beyond our desires, or it may be beyond, it may not be what I want it to be. For initial time, that will be the case. When you do that, and then at the same time you have to engage in all of these activities like visiting temples, associating with devotees, slowly and steadily you'll start losing sense, taste for all of these things. And you might feel that, okay, this is not a restraint anymore. Honestly, I don't even feel like looking at it. So those two things go hand in hand. You have to keep doing this, and eventually it will lead to uh, naturally restraining the senses. But in the initial days, definitely you will have to, we will all have to practice this restraint uh, in a way that stops us, or sometimes may feel unnatural to my behavior. Does that answer your question?
Yes. Yes, it answers. Because lately I started to feel like I don't want to eat meat.
Yeah.
It's happened naturally in that sense. Sometimes, yeah, but on the other side, for some music or something like that, yeah, I
Mhm.
guess I need to make some effort on that side. I see.
Yeah. So, uh, honestly, when I am talking about all of these things, it's not like I have realized these things. Even
Mhm.
I am learning all of them, and when I read them, when I try to study them, and when I'm trying to talk about it, it just gives me deeper realizations about what I'm doing in my own life to learn and try and be more aware of these practices. So
Yeah.
it definitely helps. That it definitely helps when we hear these things again and again repeatedly. Because if you remember a few verses back, Krishna told Arjuna that by the power of this knowledge, this desire will evaporate. The fire of this knowledge will burn away these reactions. In the same way, we get all of these things, all of these desires naturally, because we have tuned our brain for so many lifetimes after lifetimes to act in that particular nature. But when we start reverse tuning it by, in fact, tuning it to the positive or the right direction through the association of devotees, by eating prasadam, by hearing these regularly, by
Mhm.
chanting, it will take some time for it to become a natural response for our body. So, yeah, it is nice to know that you You're feeling that naturally, that probably meat is not the thing. But yeah, it will take
Mm,
time for the other senses, because I think
mhm.
our oral reception is one of the most subtlest sense that exists uh, out of all our senses. So it does take time.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much for the question.